Today I'm looking at this Yamaha electro classical guitar. It's a nice looking guitar. The action's nice. Doesn't seem to be too much wrong with it, except if you have a look here, this is where the battery compartment was. I've taken it out. You can see that there's a split in the side. So what do we do about this? Well, fortunately, it looks as if it's going to be reasonably straightforward to repair, because we should be able to get some wood glue down into the split and then clamp this closed to make a reasonably good join back to the body. However, that won't be strong enough, and the problem is likely to happen again when the battery changed. So this happened, I think, when the battery was changed, and repeated changes have just caused this to pull up. So what we need to do is we're going to need to put some small cleats on the inside of the guitar to strengthen each of these two splits from the back, and we'll use tight bond to make a good joint. Now, repairing the split itself is not too difficult. What I can do is I can work some glue behind this split and clamp it in place. But what I will need to do, because the sides are relatively thin and because this is split already, I will need to just put some cleats on the back to strengthen this joint so that it's less likely that it will split again. And when this is clamped in place, hopefully this join, which is quite a clean split, should be relatively flat. So to make the cleats, I'll just use a small piece of mahogany that I've thinned down, and I'll cut these to an appropriate size so that they can be glued on from the inside to make this joint strong. Now, there are several ways in which you can attack splits like this in the side of the guitar. One way is to use a guitar tuner clamp. So this is where you have a guitar tuner and you make a very small hole through here, and you thread a string, maybe a high E string or a B string. You thread it through the back of the cleat and then insert the cleat from the back. Of course, this cleat is way too big, but just using it for demonstration purposes. You insert it from the back and you put the tuner clamp on the front, and you gradually tighten the string so that it pulls the cleat forwards and clamps and sandwiches this split, and you get a nice, good clamping action. In this case, that may not be necessary, because by removing the battery holder, there's a reasonably good access, and it may be possible to insert a clamp through the battery holder and clamp it in a more straightforward way. However, there isn't very much room, because there is some purfling down on the bottom. There's a little bit more room on the top, so getting access is going to be a little bit awkward. So the next step in the process is to make some cleats that are going to fit nicely on the inside using this mahogany. I'll make sure that the grain of the mahogany is oriented in the opposite direction, so it will counter the desire of this rosewood to split along its grain. So I'll make the cleats and then work out what is the best way to clamp this in place. So once I've glued this in place, I'm hopeful that it'll be reasonably smooth. I'll use if necessary, a little bit of thin super glue to just work its way down between the finish to try to fill that in, and that will give it slightly more strength, but it may also give a sort of an improvement to the cosmetic look. And then around here, some of the finish has been removed. So what I'll do is I'll just see if I can tidy this up a little bit and then apply some Star Bond super glue and build up the layers so that the layers become slightly bigger than the current finish. And then I'll scrape it down with a very sharp blade, sand it very smooth, and try to polish this so we conceal as best possible the damage to the finish. It won't look perfect, but at least it will mean that it won't be so obvious, and it's unlikely, if we can get it smooth, that somebody will maybe catch their clothes on the sharp edges and pull it loose again. I've made these clamps. They're a piece of wood that has been radiused to approximately the correct radius of the side of the guitar. And there is a tuner, a machine head in the clamp. And this will go inside the guitar and be held inside. And then I will feed the wire through the machine head and turn the machine head and gradually tighten this so that this clamp starts to push that in, and we should get a tight joint. I'll put glue on the surfaces that, of the joint, put the clamp on, tighten it up, and then later on, and I'm going to do this in 2 stages because it's difficult to find the space, I'll put some cleats behind to strengthen the joint. Okay, so I needed a little bit of tape to help just get the edges down a little bit, but I think we have some squeeze out, so we should have a reasonably good joint here. So I'll let that set overnight and put some cleats on the back tomorrow. The guitar has now got cleats on the back. These are now glued, and so this crack in the side, this split, is now very firmly glued. There is a very small ledge where this central portion hasn't sat down completely in the middle. So to try to reduce that, you can use a razor blade with some tape put on here and here, leaving just the central portion sharp, and you can just scrape until it becomes flat. What I'll do now is that I have some special super glue which can be polished to a high finish, and I'll use that to fill in some of the gaps where there is chip to the finish. I'll fill in the gaps, scrape it again to make it smooth, and then sand and polish, and hopefully, even though we'll still be able to see where the crack happened, it should be reasonably flat. It's been difficult to film this process because holding the guitar and the camera so that you can see is quite difficult. But what I've done is I've used Starbond adhesive to fill the gaps, a razor blade to flatten everything out, and where I've been able to, I've put some sawdust, some matching sawdust into the gaps. You can still see the cracks, but it's a lot better than it was. And I'm going to polish this in a minute to try to get the shine back. And then at the end of it, we should have a very strong finish, and one that is at least smooth, if not invisible.